When I was in high school in ninth grade, my best friend and current business partner, Joel Pearlman, and I started selling blow pop lollipops out of our lockers. And so I would say everything from the moment we thought we could actually do something like that to sourcing it, which happened to be from his uncle who owned a drugstore, and figuring out how much that he would sell them to us for, which was wholesale, 5 cents per blow pop, and buying them in a box at 100 a time. And then the idea of bringing them to school. Where would we sell them? When would we sell them? When we got the money, what would we do with it? We loved it. I loved it. And so that's now, I only say this in reflection, because at the moment I didn't think of it this way, but upon reflection, I realized that was a defining moment for me, and I knew that I loved being an entrepreneur. Joel and I continued to do businesses throughout high school, and we did go to college, but we continued to do businesses while we were in college. And then when we were coming upon our senior years, I was pretty concerned because I really didn't want to go into the workforce. In fact, I was a political science major, and I remember I needed to get one credit. I was one credit shy, and I had to go to the chairman of the political science department and beg him for the ability to do that remotely, which at that time was not common at all, so I could graduate. But it didn't really matter to me whether or not I graduated. Many times throughout my time in college, I would go to my father and I would ask him if I could just drop out because I was just ready to go do something. So Joel and I started a business right out of college. We were selling supplies for laser printers at the time, and we were doing it from our basement for about 6 months. And then we rented a small office that was like, 200 square feet. And we did that for maybe about a year. And then we, slowly expanded into bigger spaces over the years. It was nothing but excitement. I just would walk in to that little space and think, I have a business. This is unbelievable. And I remember thinking to myself, if we could do $1 million in sales one day, that would be unbelievable. Like, I will have made it. And that's all I thought about was, could we do $1 million in sales one day? And so it was nothing but excitement. No challenge was, annoying. It was all good, just figuring it all out. We had a passion for taking care of customers, and we loved it. Whenever there was a problem, we were all over it and so excited to like take care of them and have them be so grateful, that we went above and beyond. And so it was just all excitement the whole time. We read a classified ad where we could get trained on how to go about doing this business. And so we borrowed money from our parents, $7,500 each. And we went to Texas. We traveled down to Texas and got trained on the business. And we set up shop right after that. In fact, I don't even think we had graduated college yet, and we were reaching out to family and friends to see if they could open up doors for us and getting into the selling process, which at the time we didn't think of it was the selling process. We just were trying to get business. And we learned on the fly. We did not have any experience with making invoices. How much inventory should we have? Receiving money, accounts receivable. How much cash should we have in the bank? How much money can we take out as a salary? And when can we do that? Et cetera. All those kinds of things that you end up dealing with not too soon after, you start the business. I do remember Joel's dad, who was an accountant, and he happened to be VP of finance for a large retail organization. And he said to me, there's two things that you need to remember after you make a sale. Make sure you send a bill the same day, and make sure they pay you as soon as possible. And don't ever forget that. And our accounts receivable and our billing process has been, since day one of our best processes. I mean, we've always been great at billing right away, and our accounts receivable is always 90% current or better. So upon reflection, I think Joel's dad was a mentor, especially when it came to the numbers and helping me understand the numbers better. My dad was a mentor in the sense that he was nothing but supportive. Whatever we needed, whatever I needed to survive, he was wanting me to succeed, and would stick with it. And so that was the type of mentorship they provided. Now, I was always searching for somebody, and I didn't really know what to do about that. And I remember at a certain point, after we had reached $1 million in sales and then some, I joined an organization called EO. It's called EO now. It was called YEO. And we had a joint event with another organization, which was typically for a little bit larger companies. And that organization was called YPO. And I was placed at a table with other EOers and other YPOers. And there was a man there who had a large auto supply company, auto manufacturing company. And we had to go around and do an exercise together. And it had to do with how we treated employees when things were challenging. And he was explaining how he would go down to the shop floor and he would get in people's faces and he'd be swearing at them and explaining to them that they better do this way or that way, and, get going. And, that was his method. And I remember I was very discouraged after that experience, after I left the organization, because I always looked up to YPOers. And I thought to myself, I don't know if I'm cut out to be an entrepreneur. I can't operate like that. I'm not that way. It's not within my personality. And, I just don't know if I can make it. So there was a glimpse of what I thought somebody would be as a mentor. And I felt sort of, I wasn't attracted to it. But I will say that when we had a circumstance that brought us to meet Gino Wickman, and he began teaching us what is now called the EOS process, Gino really became a mentor in the sense that he helped me understand all the components that were important to run a successful and healthy business and how they all worked together. And he gave me the confidence that you didn't have to be that sort of person. And so I felt re-energized through that. Later, after I had worked with Gino for a number of years, I read a book called Small Giants. And I started to learn about these companies that were people-focused, people before profit. And it wasn't that they weren't profitable. Actually, they were more profitable than their others in their industries, as it turned out, by being people-focused first. And I started to feel like that makes sense to me, that being a servant leader made sense to me. And so I started to meet people like the author of the book, Small Giants, Bo Burlingham. I started to meet people like Jack Stack, who authored a book called The Great Game of Business, which teaches financial literacy, which outlines how to teach financial literacy to your employees. I met Ari Weisweg, who is the CEO of the Zingerman's Community of Business. Paul Spiegelman, who is the founder of the Small Giants community and had a culture first business called Barrel, and so many others along the way, who really taught me how I could build on this foundation that Gino really got in place for us, and really focus on being a company with a strong culture, people first, and really fit within my personality. I never had fear to start the business, but I have had and still do have fear of not being successful or not meeting my own potential. And that has worked to my benefit at times and also to my detriment, because the drive is there, and that's a positive thing. And I'm always wanting to grow and learn. And that's really baked into my values and our core values at my company at imageONE. On the detriment side, sometimes I might lose sight of what has been accomplished and lose sight of the wins and the successes along the way and the good things that we've done. And so I've had to make that a practice to reflect and learn to be grateful for the little things that happen along the way and the big things that those are easy usually to celebrate. And I've also had to learn how to celebrate. I'm kind of an even keeled person. I don't get low, I don't get high. And so when we have, challenging times, I can handle it pretty well. And when we have really great times and big successes, I handle that in a way where you don't sense a great deal of excitement from me. And that translates over to the team. And so I've really had to practice too, how to go about celebrating and really work hard to be a lifter upper. Oh, it's the best. The first sale is the best. It's just so exciting to know that somebody wants your products, your services, and they want to get it from you. They saw something in you and they believed in you. And I remember canvassing door to door in these office buildings in the Detroit area. Joel and I would split up and we'd just go up and down the hallways and get kicked out of a lot of places. We had these catalogs that we had printed up, and we'd ask for the office manager and kind of go through this, whole process, which we didn't know it was a process then, but it was. And when I reflect on it, and I think, we were 22 years old. And I'm sure when we walked in, people thought, who is this kid? And I actually think, in some cases it worked against us, but in a lot of cases it worked for us because they took mercy on us and they said, I can't just kick this kid out. I mean, he's hustling, And so it just felt so good when they trusted us. And I do think back a lot to those early days when customers gave us a shot, and I know we messed up and customers would probably push their own limits with a vendor with us. In other words, any other vendor, they may have said, I'm not doing business with you anymore. But with us, maybe they gave us 2 or 3 extra chances, just knowing that we were young and we were a startup and we were hustling. And I always appreciated, early on, we got what became a really major company, but they were small at the time. They only had 50 employees, and they gave us a shot. And they were hard on us at the beginning, and their culture is still that way. They have a great culture, but they're really demanding. That taught us a lot. It taught us how to deal with the kind of challenges that they were throwing at us, and then how we could create processes within our company so we could bring those challenges solved now to other companies. So where they were pushing our limits, they were teaching us. And we've been with them now for close to 30 years. And they have over what is it, like 15,000, 20,000 employees now. They had 50 employees. I mean, who could ever know? So sometimes I think back and I think to myself, you have to treat every customer special, because you don't know what they're going to turn into. I mean, if we had dismissed their challenges and didn't have the right attitude about it, we would have lost them as a customer. And someone else would be servicing that account today. And we'd be sitting there kicking ourselves that we had them as an account back in 1992. And now we lost it. And look what we lost out on. All of them. First of all, we never had a stated vision at the beginning. And then for many years, really, we went 10 years and until we started working with the EOS process, we were missing a lot of components. So vision was definitely missing. We had all kinds of the wrong people and we didn't know why. And so, that was an ongoing challenge that we had in those early days. I think charging enough was another area where, it took some time for us to really figure out the proper price points and margins that kept us healthy. It's a competitive business that we're in, like so many competitive industry. And we didn't have the expertise in it. And as a result, our margins were consistently lower than the industry averages. And so that took us some time to figure out and to feel confident about, that we should get paid for the level of service that we bring to the table. True to our core, the way that we met Gino was actually we got away from our core because we made a small acquisition, which was outside of our core business, and we were struggling with it. And so not only had we not mastered our own business, but here we brought on this other business, and we were trying to wrap our arms around that. And I remember Joel, my business partner, and I were sitting down one day and just talking, and Joel said, "Does it seem to you like this is really hard? Like it shouldn't be this hard. It's only been 6 months and, it just doesn't seem like it's clicking." That led us to go out to our peers, and that's how we ended up meeting Gino. And Gino came in and, our original reason for meeting was this quandary that we were dealing with. And Gino said, "Hey, you can make it successful, but the best companies stay focused." And he actually recommended a book called Focus by Al Ries, and we read it. And that was, his advice plus the book was enough to put us over the edge to say, we're going to undo the acquisition. Like, we're just going to close it up. And we need to stay focused on our core. And that's what we've done successfully ever since. I mean, we really have not gotten distracted in the least bit. So we did get off our core, and that was big. Roles and responsibilities. Yeah, for sure. 100%. Even with my business partner and I, with Joel and I, we were tripping over each other in the early days. I'd call a customer and then he'd come in and say, yeah, I just got off with the customer and they said they already talked to you. And I'd say, who owns that? We had people all over the organization it was all disjointed. And we didn't even really have clear titles and roles and responsibilities that were documented and accountability around those roles and responsibilities. So those were huge mistakes. I always thought I knew the numbers really well. And then there was a point in time after I'd met Jack Stack, who I mentioned is one of my mentors and teaches financial literacy and kind of teaches how to teach it. And I got really interested in that. And I realized that when I was reading an income statement and a balance sheet, I felt I understood it pretty well. But if I had to go teach it to somebody, I couldn't do a good job at that. And when I became interested in us teaching our team and opening our books and having to teach it, that became a huge challenge for me personally. And I realized I really don't understand the numbers at the level I need to. And I've been going all these years without. And that was really an impactful time for me as a leader and as an entrepreneur, was to actually learn how to teach it, because people start asking you questions and you don't have the answers, and you have to be vulnerable enough to say, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to find out and I'm going to come back. I'm learning along with you. And I would encourage entrepreneurs to not only learn the numbers, but learn how to teach them. That'll be your ultimate challenge, is if you can teach them and feel really confident and the person you're teaching to is getting it, then your numbers. So Joel read a classified ad in the back of Entrepreneur magazine. We would read Inc. magazine, Entrepreneur magazine, and whatnot when we were in college. And laser printers back then were new. They were only a few years old. And they took these toner cartridges. Everyone's aware of it now, these ink cartridges, and they were expensive. And people were spending a lot of money on these machines. And then they quickly realized these cartridges that go into them cost a lot of money, and it's annoying. And they're kind of stuck because they bought the machine and now they're constantly having to pay a lot of money for these cartridges. And so we saw an opportunity through this company to learn how to sell these remanufactured toner cartridges at like half the price. And we thought, this seems like a good business. These printers are new. People love printing. They hate spending a lot of money. It's a great value proposition. And that's what led us down that path. What we didn't know was that the remanufactured cartridges didn't work as well. There was a lot of issues with them. And that was a true test for us that I was mentioning kind of before, which is, how do you handle defective products that were your products? When we sold them, it was 30% of the products we would sell were defective. So that was our return rate. So how do you build a business around a product that has a 30% defective rate? And how do you sell it from the heart, when you know that the defective rate is that high? And how do you get past that challenge with the prospect? And so all these things taught us a lot about business. And we later stopped selling remanufactured cartridges and got into office equipment, and became a dealer for some of the major manufacturers like Hewlett Packard and Xerox and Lexmark. And we sold the original cartridges, which have no defective rate. And all of a sudden our business seemed so much easier. So all that training and all that struggle was really worth it, because it constantly forced us to look at, it's got to be easier than this. We got to figure out a better way. And so we were always questioning and curious and looking at different ways to do this business. to stay within our core, even though consciously, I don't think we were saying we need to stay within our core, but we knew there was something to this business because we were building our customer base and they had this equipment and they were needing these cartridges and they were needing service on the equipment. So we knew there was a business there, and it just was constantly trying to figure out the better way to skin the cat, so to speak. So it would be an easier business for us. And there have been so many times where I questioned the business, the industry, the passion, the people. There are so many things that come at you when you're an entrepreneur. And there are often times, and I'll speak for myself, but I know it goes well beyond me, where it does feel like it's a nightmare. One of the key components is having that operating system. And how do you go about doing stuff at your place, and everybody gets it and they are following along with it. And that certainly helps you gain control. And so I found that to be really useful. Of course, we use the EOS process, and there are others out there that people can look at. But having that process was really key. So losing customers. We had at one point a really large customer that was taking up a high percentage of our business, and we lost that customer. And those are scary times. Right now, with COVID, being an office equipment dealer and nobody's in their office. I mean, when this hit in March of 2020, I was living in Detroit, downtown Detroit. I looked out my window and there wasn't a soul out. It was a work day, and I was used to walk into my office and there'd be tons of people and nobody was out. Nobody. It was nobody out there. And I called Joel, my business partner, and I said, we got to huddle up with the leadership team. We're in for it. If what I'm seeing out my window right now keeps going, we're going to be in for it for a while. And that proved to be true because we're still dealing with it. And so, those are the things where you question, what am I doing this for? But, to me, the pros always have outweighed the cons. I love the quote unquote freedom, because I in many ways, it isn't the freedom you think of. And, it's not like you're just freewheeling, like, I'll just do whatever I want. But you do have the freedom to kind of figure some things out and chart the path. And it's painful. That path is painful at times, but it's your call. Nobody else is telling you. You're not following along. And the customers, they tell you, and then it's up to you to listen and chart the path. And if you don't like what they're saying, you can say, I don't want to do that, and chart a different path. And it's all up to you. And I love that. For me, being able to change people's lives, that's really, I'm really passionate about that. That's our purpose. And so, when I see, okay, we've got a team and they do stuff, and that stuff helps us be a successful company, grow, make more money as a company, which we can reinvest into them and provide them with a life, which is our vision, that they would look back on and say, wow, I joined this company X number of years ago. What a good move that was. Because before that, I was working for a pretty good company and I really liked them, but I could have never imagined what it was like on the other side of it. Great decision. I had a much better life because of it. I was fulfilled at work. I was fulfilled in my life. I was treated fairly. I was empowered. I learned all along the way. And as an entrepreneur, I could chart that course if I want. And that's been a choice we've made. Other entrepreneurs chart other courses, and they're really passionate about that. I have a friend who is amazing at making money. And he's like, I can't even understand it. He's so good at it. And he is so excited about a deal and figuring it out and doing it in the right way, always honest and, of the highest integrity. But he's just really good at figuring it out. And I just love learning from him and watching him. And that is what juices, gets his juices flowing. To me, all the things I do, the money's a byproduct of it all. And so, but they're all good course, all good paths to take. And that's what I love about being an entrepreneur. Um, I'll let you know. I mean, I'll go back to an earlier comment I made about just thinking, wow, if we could only be $1 million business, you know, and I think, having done this now for 30 years, I've evolved as a person. The things that are important to me back then are different today, and different phases along the way. And so success can be measured in so many different ways. For me, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of what matters to me is ensuring our company is extremely healthy financially so we can provide a life where we are lifting people up in this world and not dragging them down. And so that is a very large measure of success, which is the totality of our team members' lives. We do a survey every year called the imageONE Happy, and it's 85 questions, and it revolves around the totality of their lives, not only the work that they do at imageONE, but what's happening outside of imageONE. And we have them rank their life happiness on a scale from 1 to 10. And then after we have all that data, we go to work and try to figure out how we can do, make little shifts, do little things. It's not usually big things, actually. It's little things to enhance their lives, to make a difference, to help raise the score up for the overall happiness of our team. And so if I'm, going out to pasture and I'm looking back, I just would wonder, did I do a good job at that? Was I able to make an impact within the team? And then that extends out into the communities of which we're a part of. And the team, we empower the team to stretch out into the community. It's an expectation, actually, when you come into the company. And so the more people we have, the more reach they'll have. And that, you can see kind of how that cycle of care, as we like to call it, starts to really gain a lot of steam and really go and move at a pace where it can't be stopped. And that's what we're working towards. And I don't know that we'll really ever get there, because I don't know what there is. Here's something, if you're thinking about starting a business, that you could consider. The first thing is to really pause for a moment and ask yourself why you want to do this so badly. Certainly, the book asks a lot of questions to help lead you there. One of the tools that you could consider using as you go about this is to pause and really check in with yourself and 3 parts of your body: your mind, your heart, and your gut. And some of us, 2 of the 3 are typically more prevalent in people. Some people work very much from their mind, and some people, and a lot of entrepreneurs, work very much from their gut. But when you can bring the 3 of those together, it really can tell you something about the decision that you're making. And that requires practice. And so you pause and become mindful for a moment of your body and checking in with those 3 areas, starting with your mind and looking at all the facts around whatever decision that you're embarking on. And if it's to be an entrepreneur and, go out there in the world with your products and your services, check in with your mind. And is the data lining up? Is it making sense at a conscious level for you? And then check in with your gut. Is there anything that your gut is telling you? This is the right thing. I just know. I can't really explain it. So check in with your gut, but then much lesser used, check in with your heart. And when you think about this decision that you're about to make, do you feel love? Do you feel peace? Do you feel a sense of calm coming over you, or excitement? Does your heart beat faster, or does it start to sink? And if all 3 of those are lining up, it's likely you're on the right track. If one of them isn't there, it might be worth some additional investigation as to why.